Girl, was it good? You heard she getting out the car? Yeah. I wonder how she look. Hey, yeah!
I'm out of here! Goodbye!
I can't believe you just did that! You are my stuff and you know it, don't even try.
Stop.
What about women? You mean fish? Yeah. Fish,
My, no, honey. Ain't nothing like coming home to a warm man in the bed.
Who the hell are you?
It look like shame. No, shame ain't that clean.
Can you imagine being so mesmerizing, so naturally gifted, that Hollywood rewrote an entire movie role originally designed for RuPaul just to cast you instead? Can you imagine performing 2-hour improvised comedy shows every single week for 4 straight years, never using a script, never repeating a joke, and still leaving audiences breathless? This is the story of Corwin Anthony Hawkins, a performer so unique that even decades after his passing, people still whisper his name with awe and wonder how far he would have risen had fate not intervened. Corwin Anthony Hawkins was born on March 12, 1965 in Houston, Texas, into a deeply religious Catholic family. His parents, Wilbur and Joyce, raised Corwin and his siblings, Phoebe, Deidre, and Wilbur Jr. in the warm, tight-knit community of St. Benedict's Catholic Church. Nothing about his upbringing suggested the outrageous, glamorous, boundary-breaking performer he would one day become. But those who knew him as a child remembered something unmistakable: a spark, a natural ability to observe people, mimic voices, slip into characters, and make entire rooms fall apart laughing. After graduating high school in 1982, Corwin stumbled into what would become his life's true calling. Not acting, not traditional stand-up, something far more electric. Female impersonation blended with pure improv comedy, a form of performance no one in Texas had ever seen done at this level. He didn't lip-sync like typical drag performers of the time. He didn't recite polished monologues. Corwin transformed, becoming different women, different personas, different emotional worlds, sometimes shifting within seconds. By the late 1980s, Houston clubs were packed every Tuesday night for one reason: Amazing Grace, Corwin's show-stopping alter ego. What he did on stage was nothing short of astonishing. For 2 hours straight, he performed a fully improvised comedy show. No script, no rehearsal, no safety net. Every show was new. Every joke was born right there in the moment. Audiences never knew what to expect, and Corwin thrived on that unpredictability. Most comedians spend months perfecting a 1-hour set. Corwin created 2-hour sets weekly, drawing from instinct alone, and somehow he made it look effortless. He walked onto the stage, a vision of glamour, immaculate bob hairstyle, tailored Chanel-inspired suits, expensive Ferragamo heels. But unlike most drag performers who favored sparkling gowns, Corwin created a unique visual identity: elegant, powerful, a businesswoman who commanded the room. And then, as soon as the music kicked in, that elegance exploded into chaos. The joyful, fearless chaos that made Amazing Grace legendary. Corwin's comedy revolved around the audience. If you sat near the front, you were part of the show whether you liked it or not. He'd pull people on stage, turn strangers into characters, force them into dance battles, make them sing, or drag them through outrageous improvised scenarios that couldn't be replicated if you tried. Every night, the club became a world built entirely from Corwin's imagination. He created recurring characters that became household names in Texas nightlife. Kelly Kelly, the queen of razor-sharp roasts. Deborah, the chaotic relationship guru. Fania Punta, the dramatic storyteller. MK Uwaka, a mysterious, unpredictable presence people still can't describe. But some of his most beloved performances were his celebrity portrayals: Whitney Houston, Diana Ross, Grace Jones, Mariah Carey. His Whitney was so precise, so eerily accurate, that crowds went silent the moment he tilted his head or lifted his hand just the way Whitney did. People said that if you closed your eyes, you'd swear she was standing right in front of you. By 1991, Corwin knew local fame wasn't enough. He entered the Miss Gay Texas pageant as Amazing Grace and won with such dominance that judges later said they felt they were witnessing history. The next year, he claimed Texas Entertainer of the Year, solidifying himself as one of the most unique performers in the state. Then came 1992, Louisville, Kentucky, National Entertainer of the Year. Performers from all major U.S. cities arrived with fully choreographed routines and prepared skits. Corwin walked on stage with nothing but instinct, and he won. At just 27 years old, he became a national champion. That win changed everything. Suddenly, HBO was calling. BT was calling, and then came the invitation that would bring Corwin into living rooms across America. Def Comedy Jam. For a drag performer to enter that space, A space dominated by raw, masculine, high-energy stand-up was unheard of. But Corwin walked onto that stage and did what he always did. He owned it. Hollywood noticed, and soon, a director named Keenan Ivory Wayans would see something in Corwin so powerful that it would change film history forever. Corwin's comedy empire wasn't built overnight. It grew in packed bars, in smoky Texas rooms where the spotlight buzzed, the mic cracked, and the audience arrived expecting just another drag act, only to walk away stunned by what they had witnessed. For most performers, a show was a routine. For Corwin, a show was a battlefield, a place where he walked in elegant and polished only to tear the stage apart with chaos, brilliance, and characters so vivid that people forgot he was just one man. Every Tuesday night became legend. He'd enter as Amazing Grace, immaculate hair, pristine Chanel suits, jewelry that caught every glimmer of club light. The crowd whispered, "She looks like she runs the place." But within minutes, Grace would unravel into controlled madness, roasting audience members, climbing across tables, improvising songs, lecturing strangers about their terrible dating choices, or conducting imaginary arguments with her own shoes. Each transformation was so seamless that newcomers assumed it must be scripted. Veterans knew better. Nothing Corwin ever did was written down. This gift is what built a cult around him. Kelly arrived for the moments Corwin wanted to slice someone open with a joke. Clean, precise, devastating. Deborah stepped in when he felt the room needed therapy, delivered with sarcastic tenderness. Wanda brought pure, flamboyant storytelling, absurd and outrageous. And Maku Waka, well, even Corwin couldn't explain what Maku Waka was. All anyone knew was that when she appeared, the room braced itself. Through these characters, he didn't just entertain. He created a universe, one he built live every night, one shocked laugh at a time. And audiences weren't the only ones watching. Talent scouts began slipping into his shows. Pageant organizers whispered his name. Producers debated whether he was a drag performer or a comedic phenomenon they simply didn't have a label for yet. By 1991, the Ms. Gay Texas pageant wasn't a competition. It was an inevitability. Corwin walked in as Amazing Grace and walked out with the crown. Judges muttering that they had never seen someone command a stage like that. The following year, he became Texas Entertainer of the Year. And then came Louisville, Kentucky, where the National Entertainer of the Year competition gathered the strongest performers from every major U.S. city. Corwin beat them all. Not with choreography, not with rehearsed monologues, but with his rare ability to summon art from pure instinct. That night marked it. Corwin Hawkins wasn't just a regional star anymore. He was a rising national force. Hollywood started paying attention. The call from Def Comedy Jam changed everything. This was sacred ground, the launch pad for legends. And Corwin wasn't just invited, he was featured. He walked onto that stage not as Amazing Grace, but as himself, yet still carrying every sharp comedic weapon he had forged in Texas. His timing stunned the crowd. His shifts between personas had people gasping. And when the episode aired, viewers felt like they were witnessing something new, something they didn't have the vocabulary for. Casting directors began whispering one question: who is this man? They had never seen drag performance fused with traditional stand-up, never seen improvisation done with such precision, never seen someone switch characters mid-joke with the fluidity of a seasoned actor and the fearlessness of someone who never once questioned his place on the stage. His legend spread. And that's when Keenan Ivory Wayans heard the name Corwin Hawkins for the first time. He was developing an action comedy, a low-down dirty shame, with a role specifically written for RuPaul. But after watching Corwin, after witnessing the raw talent, the elasticity, the unpredictability, Wayans made a decision that shocked Hollywood insiders. Rewrite the role. Forget the original plan. Cast Corwin Hawkins. It wasn't just an offer, it was validation that his entire journey, the tiny clubs, the improvised shows, the characters no one else could have invented, had led him exactly where he belonged. Corwin Hawkins was about to become a movie star. Corwin Hawkins had always lived between two worlds, the one he created on stage, where he was untouchable, electric, and endlessly inventive, and the one he lived off stage, where the fragility of being a young black queer performer in the 1990s was becoming harder to ignore. And as Hollywood finally began to open its doors to him, his body began sending warnings he didn't yet understand. When filming wrapped on a low-down, dirty shame, Corwin went home to Texas carrying something he hadn't felt in years: certainty. For the first time, everything in his life was aligning. The pageant crowns, the national comedy recognition, the drag circuit fame, the HBO appearances, and now a major film role rewritten just for him. He told friends he felt like God had finally circled back to finish the blessing. He talked non-stop about upcoming premieres, interviews, and new opportunities. He planned to attend screenings in every city that had once embraced him: Houston, Dallas, Atlanta, Los Angeles. He started choosing outfits for red carpet events, sketching new wigs, imagining how audiences would react the first time Peaches strutted onto the screen. He even joked about signing DVDs someday. But underneath that excitement was something quieter, a tiredness he couldn't shake. Performing had always refueled him. Energy was the one thing he never lacked. So when exhaustion hit him like a wave, slow, heavy, persistent, he brushed it off as burnout. He had been living at full speed for years. Surely this was normal, until it wasn't. By midsummer 1994, friends noticed how often Corwin paused to catch his breath, how he leaned on bars or chairs backstage between numbers, how his once limitless stamina suddenly flickered. But Corwin, being Corwin, he hid the concern behind flawless makeup and sharp comedy. He joked that even Amazing Grace deserved a vacation. He didn't want pity, he wanted applause. Still, his body was shifting in ways he couldn't camouflage. Some nights he couldn't finish a full set. Some afternoons he slept longer than he stayed awake. When he finally checked into Baylor Hospital in Dallas, he thought it would be a few tests, maybe a week of rest, but the diagnosis changed everything. Pneumonia. In the 1990s, especially for queer men, especially for performers who lived inside nightlife culture, pneumonia often meant something else, something unspoken, something feared. Corwin didn't share details with most people. He didn't want to be reduced to an illness. He didn't want rumors. He wanted to protect the legacy he was building. But as the days passed, it became clear this wasn't a short hospital stay. His strength faded rapidly. He stopped talking about auditions and premieres. When his friends visited, he still tried to make them laugh, still tried to give them amazing grace, even lying in a hospital bed. But they could see the weariness in his eyes. Tragically, just as Hollywood was preparing to meet him, Corwin was preparing for something entirely different. On August 5th, 1994, 3 months before the film that would immortalize him debuted, Corwin Anthony Hawkins passed away at just 29 years old. Word rippled through Houston's performance community like a shockwave. People cried openly in the bars where he had built his legend. Clubs dimmed their lights for a moment of silence. Pageant queens wore black ribbons during their shows. Some performers admitted they felt like a chapter of Texas drag history had been ripped away overnight. But the most heartbreaking part wasn't just that he was gone. It was what he never got to see. He never watched audiences erupt into laughter as Peaches stormed the screen with unapologetic attitude. He never experienced the roar of a movie premiere crowd cheering his name. He never heard critics praise the depth, timing, and soul he brought to the role. A role originally written for RuPaul, rewritten because Corwin outshined everyone else. He never saw the articles calling Peaches the surprise standout of the film. He never saw how many queer performers would later call him an influence. Yet even without witnessing it, he had already cemented something rare, a legacy built entirely on instinct, improvisation, courage, and authenticity. When A Low Down Dirty Shame premiered on November 23, 1994, audiences had no idea the person stealing scene after scene had passed months earlier. They thought they were watching a rising star. In a way, they were. They were watching the moment Corwin Hawkins became immortal. In Houston, his family and friends gathered for private screenings. Some laughed louder than anyone else. Some cried quietly in the back row. Many said the same thing. It's like he's still here. And maybe in a sense, he was. Through Peaches, fierce, funny, unforgettable, Corwin Hawkins lived on. Corwin Anthony Hawkins didn't just leave behind a film credit, he left behind a blueprint. A reminder that raw talent, intuition, and fearlessness can break through barriers even when the world isn't ready. His story is tragic, yes, but it's also triumphant. A celebration of a performer who carved out space where none existed, who made audiences laugh until they cried, who turned drag and comedy into art long before the mainstream learned how to appreciate it. He proved that brilliance doesn't need permission, and sometimes the most revolutionary voices are the ones gone too soon. But Corwin's legacy didn't die in 1994. It lives in every drag artist who mixes comedy with character work, in every performer who walks on stage without a script, trusting instinct over structure, in every young entertainer who watches A Low Down Dirty Shame and thinks, who was that? I want to do what he did. Corwin may have never gotten to watch his own performance on the big screen, but millions have, and through them, he continues to live. His story reminds us that impact isn't measured by longevity, but by intensity. And Corwin burned bright. So the next time you hear the name Peaches or rewatch that iconic scene-stealing moment, remember the man behind it, the improviser, the trailblazer, the artist who made magic out of thin air. This was Amazing Grace. This was Corwin Anthony Hawkins, and his story still matters. Thanks for watching. If you want more untold stories, forgotten legends, and powerful histories the world rarely talks about, hit that like, subscribe, and drop a comment below. Your engagement helps keep these voices alive